This week on Maker Update, the cutest useless robot, beach cleanup with computer vision, Geneva Drive Zoetrope, and a servo-controlled VR telepresence camera. Hey, I'm Donald Bell, and welcome back to another Maker Update. I hope you're doing well and finding some creative inspiration out there. I have a fun show for you. Let's get started with the project of the week. On Instructables, check out this outrageously over-the-top useless box variation by Toby Chui. If you're new to the concept of the useless box, it's a time-honored electronics project where you make a box that mechanically switches itself off after you switch it on. Toby's version here advances the art of the useless box in several ways. The first thing you'll notice is the LED face on the front. This is made using a series of LED matrix panels concealed behind a layer of semi-transparent black acrylic. Each flip of the switch triggers a different face animation, escalating until the box becomes hilariously frustrated. And at this point, you realize that we're now dealing with an animatronic. Beyond the face animation, there are subtle ways that the box is communicating and teasing and retaliating. From the timing of the reaction, to the delay between the lid opening and the servo flipping the switch off, even the delay of when the servo retracts, as if it knows full well that you're going to flip the switch again. But Toby really ups the ante by adding wheels to the design. After a few flips of the switch, the box begins to pace back and forth or shake back and forth in disapproval. You really get the feeling that the box is a character that you're interacting with. Now, Toby admits that he pulled a lot of his inspiration from the Kawaii useless box design by Kairoshi, made 12 years ago without much documentation. 12 years later, Toby's design here is more easily reproducible with an open source list of parts, Arduino code, a 3D printed framework, and a PCB design. That said, as cute as it is, it's a fairly advanced project. You're working with custom PCBs with lots of fussy little components, all sandwiched into a tight space. It's more than a weekend project for sure. Now for some news from the IEEE Spectrum blog, news from the Italian Institute of Technology and the development of Vero. This is a quadruped robot design that combines computer vision processing with a vacuum cleaner backpack that runs out to each of its four legs. This configuration is meant to tackle the tedious work of identifying and removing cigarette butts from parks and beaches. Compared to something like a Roomba, a design like this can be much more specific about how and what it cleans up. It's a cool idea and the kind of work that I think any human would be happy to hand off to a robot. In other news, the winners of Hackaday and DigiKey's Business Card Challenge have been announced. They include Blinken Card by Andrew Litt, Beta Board by Tim Kolbush, and Andy Geppert's Motor Driver Card, which we featured a few episodes back. You can find a link in the description for more details on the winning projects. Now for some more projects. On the KAMIKARA YouTube channel, check out this design for a papercraft Zoetrope. This thing is a real treat for a number of reasons. Just for starters, it's a fairly complicated mechanism made entirely of folded paper, but the novelty of the mechanism itself is really brilliant. In an original Zoetrope design, cutouts are used to regulate how the image hits your eye. Modern Zoetropes often use strobe lights to light the image or object at specific times. But with this design, we're seeing a brilliant use of a Geneva mechanism to push each frame of the animation into view at a consistent rate. If you own a CNC paper cutter, you can purchase the plans to make your own using the Silhouette store link in KAMIKARA's video, which also shows you the entire assembly process. As someone who doesn't have a CNC paper cutter though, I'm eager to see a design like this adapted to 3D printing or laser cutter. If you know some other options in this style, leave a link down in the comments. Will Cogley has a new video out on how he designed this 3D printed, servo-actuated telepresence robot that you can operate using a VR headset. The idea here is to have a virtual view of a physical space that you can naturally look around and immerse yourself in, instead of the Zoom call on wheels that most telepresence platforms offer. Getting the software side of this to work was a bit of a struggle, and Will explains the different hurdles involved. But for an animatronic maestro like Will, the mechanical design of the remote-controlled camera was familiar territory. In fact, he took it as an opportunity to experiment with a new print-in-place universal joint design to minimize the amount of hardware needed. Whether it's for a telepresence camera or as a neck mechanism for your next animatronic Halloween creature, keep this design in your back pocket. Now for some tips and tools. From Core 77, a look at how an entrepreneurial tabletop gamer and designer, Dwayne Gitzel, has created a small business by designing cases for popular games. These cases are 3D printed. However, Dwayne's business mostly revolves around selling the STL files he's designed so that users can print the cases on their own 3D printers. What's fascinating to me is that Dwayne's success here highlights a community of gamers who are proficient with 3D printing as a means to print out models and accessories, but may not have the CAD chops to attempt creating a case like this on their own. As 3D printing has become better and more accessible and found its way into these different communities, the promise of an on-demand, at-home fabrication economy is starting to take root. I'm excited to see how this formula might spread to other communities. And finally, a new video from Disney Research explains in glorious detail how their Star Wars BDX droids are designed and operated. In terms of design, we get this great 3D cross-section view of the internals, offering a look at motor placement, computers, battery packs, and how it all fits together. But the real magic, as I see it, is a look at how the robot's motions and animations are broken down into different layers that puppeteers can combine. We even get to see a real-time demo with the virtual controller laid over the video, showing exactly how puppeteers mix together different functions for a realistic performance. I love this stuff. I'm not sure how some of this reinforcement learning motion mapping stuff is going to trickle down to the rest of us, but I'd be surprised if the droid builder communities didn't find a way. For this week's DigiKey Spotlight, I want to point you to a video from Becky Stern on choosing between Arduino or Raspberry Pi for your next project. When you're starting out, it's natural to assume that this is something like choosing between Coke and Pepsi, but the reality is that deciding whether you're going to tackle a project with a microcontroller like Arduino or a single board computer like Raspberry Pi is really a decision that fundamentally changes how you approach the project. Becky does a fantastic job demonstrating the benefits and drawbacks of both approaches. If you could use a little clarity, be sure to give it a watch. And that does it for this week's show. Be sure to subscribe, leave a thumbs up, leave a comment. A big thanks as always to DigiKey for making this show possible, and thanks to TMDC Workshop in Barcelona for the use of their amazing space. Thank you for watching. I'll see you soon.